Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Dev Diary. What do you get when you mix Vampire Survivors, Paper Mario, and Escape from Tarkov? Well, you get today's project. So before we dive in to this mad mixture, remember to leave a like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe if you're new to the channel. And remember to turn on notifications so you don't miss future videos. So we've done many a bullet heaven / survivor like game here on the channel, but as always I'm looking for ways to spice things up, and today's project does that by taking inspiration from two very different games. Mixing the spirit / theme of Paper Mario, we're working with a pretty basic setup for this type of game, and the visuals being similar to the HTML5 game we worked on a while back is just coincidence. Anyway, what makes this experience different is the fact that our player doesn't snowball via evolution or progress, rather strength through allies that spawn in the world, which are automatically purchased with currency gained from defeating enemies. On the other hand, if things are getting a bit too heated, the player can opt to instead extract with their earnings. We'll break things down more as we go. So let's start with the player, which again is typical in control scheme, and as is tradition in this type of game, attacks are not aimed manually. Rather, the player will fire in the direction of the nearest enemy to its position. This is done through a timer specifically set up for the player attacks, with a separate timer used to spawn allies. Now, both allies and the player use the same projectile spawn code, and projectiles are pretty basic in behavior. They'll continue moving in their given direction until they hit the edge of the world or an enemy, and of course hitting an enemy will damage said enemy. The allies are represented by snakes for some reason and can be earned every minute. They are technically immortal and will continuously attack until they reach the end of their lifespan, and their behavior mirrors the players by automatically aiming for the nearest enemy to their positions. Now, there are technically 4 types of allies that can be obtained, and are all color-coded. Unfortunately, due to a lack of time, I was unable to give each type their own unique attack, so they simply fire colored variants of a basic projectile. Now, when those projectiles damage and eventually defeat enemies, the player is awarded with currency, which is also technically experience, the cap of which scales with every level earned. When a minute is up, an extraction point is spawned somewhere in the world. When that countdown reaches 0, one of 2 things happens. When the player is outside the extraction point, a check is made to their experience. If the player has at least 5 levels, that experience will be deducted from their score, and an ally will be added to their roster. A twist to the system is that the ally awarded is completely random, and so allies of the same type will accumulate, which is reflected in how many each will spawn per cycle. Now, on the other hand, if the player is within the extraction point, the level simply resets. And again, if I had time, this would return the player to another screen to spend their points on a store or something. And that was all I was able to get to for this session. I ended up spending way more time than anticipated on this one to also test some other things behind the scenes, specifically the visuals. I mean, if you haven't noticed, this project uses a 3D projection, meaning everything happening in this game is happening in a 3D space. And this includes the usage of typical drawing methods as surfaces and particles. And once again, the visual aspect was inspired by Paper Mario and is meant to have that diorama-like presentation style. A lot of time went into figuring this all out, mostly because gamemaker in 3D is a pain, and there's clearly still improvements to be made. For example, the Z fighting with the particles. Regardless, I really liked the concept and ideas for this project, and I kind of want to continue working on it. Though there are many concerns that need addressing from top to bottom in regards to the actual loop and incentives. So as always, let me know what you think of the ideas worked on today and how you'd improve them or what you would do to add to the experience. I'm always happy to hear your thoughts, so be sure to leave them in the comments. And before we wrap things up, if you enjoy these game dev videos and would like to help me continue making them, I am on Patreon. Supporting me on Patreon can get you exclusive access to games and demos, extra content, and even early access to the weekly videos before they're released on YouTube. And with that said, brings us to the end of today's Dev Diary, so thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.